MicroBrewr Podcast, Session 40.
Welcome to MicroBrewr Podcast. Here's your host, Nathan Pierce.
Wow, I can't believe it's already episode 40. We've come so far. We've talked to so many people, asking them how to start a brewery. And thanks for listening this far, all the way to episode 40. Welcome to MicroBrewr Podcast, where we talk about everything craft beer related, with the focus for people looking at starting their own microbrewery or wanting to take their existing brewery to the next level. I'm your host, Nathan Pierce, and I thank you for listening. I also ask you to please support MicroBrewr. You could go to microbrewer.com/support MicroBrewr, and there are several ways that you can help keep this going. For example, one way is to leave a comment in iTunes. And if you leave a comment in iTunes, you'll get a chance to win MicroBrewr Podcast bar coasters. So there's a contest going through the end of the year. You leave a rating and review in iTunes for MicroBrewr Podcast, and please leave your honest feedback. At the end of the month, I'll randomly pick 5 winners and mail someone MicroBrewr bar coasters. So you only have until December 31st, 2014. If you're listening after this, sorry, too late. For more details, listen to episode 39. I explain some very specific things you have to do to make sure that I know you're the one who left the review. No sending me somebody else's review. You got to do it yourself. So listen to episode 39 and then leave the rating and review in iTunes, and hopefully you're one of the 5 winners who I'll send coasters to. All right, in this episode, I talk with Alexis Irvin from Blood, Sweat, and Beer documentary in Silver Spring, Maryland. A few years ago, Alexis and her partner Chip Hayden traveled across the country trying to find out what it takes to make a living doing what you love. They interviewed a bunch of people in lots of different fields who all had their dream job, and they put it together in a movie and a book. You could check it out at www.thedreamshareproject.com. Anyways, they did just that. They followed their dreams, quit their jobs, and they started working for themselves. So their next project that Alexis is here to talk with us about today was actually kind of similar. They traveled across the country and they interviewed people about their dream job, working at a brewery. They didn't really put it that way. I'll let Alexis explain it in more detail coming up in today's show. And Alexis is super generous. She gave us a coupon code just for the MicroBrewr audience to get 20% off of the price of a digital download when the full-length movie comes out in a few months. You don't have to wait a few months. You could go already and pre-order with the discount code. If you go to bloodsweatbeermovie.com, click on the button that says Redeem Code, and then use the discount code MicroBrewr in all caps. MicroBrewr. Drop the last E. Make sure it's in all caps for 20% off. So a digital download of the film for only $3.99. So that's at bloodsweatbeermovie.com. Use the code MicroBrewr in all caps at checkout, and you'll see that the code took $1 off. Sweet. If you forget the code or the website address or anything like that, you could go to the show notes at microbrewer.com/session40. Pretty cool. Little opportunity to get a movie for 20% off. $3.99 for a digital movie is a pretty good deal. Thanks, Alexis, for giving us that exclusive code for the MicroBrewr audience. I already bought mine. I downloaded the trailer, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the full-length documentary. I'll let Alexis tell you more about it. So here's the interview. So hey, Alexis, I introduced you to the listeners. Let's take a few minutes, and you could tell us more about you and your movie.
All right, sounds good. So I created Blood, Sweat, and Beer, the documentary, with my partner, Chip Hayden. This is actually our second documentary. The first one we filmed when we were 22 years old. We both had pretty boring office jobs. We were feeling very unsatisfied with our lives. We weren't sure what we wanted to do. So we decided to save up our money, quit our jobs, and we went on a road trip for 3 months. And we interviewed people all over the country that had their dream job. And our goal with that was to make a movie to help other people figure out what is your passion and how do you pursue it and become successful. So we finished that film in 2011, and it's called the Dream Share Project. And since then, we've screened that at over 175 colleges across the U.S., and we speak with students about figuring out what their passion is.
How did you find people who have a dream job? Did you just take their word for it?
Well, we had some ideas in the beginning. We thought maybe a movie director would be cool to talk to, someone that was involved in sports, somebody that had wrote a book, different artists, entrepreneurs, activists, athletes. We were just we kind of based it on what location we were going to. So like when we visited Los Angeles, we obviously talked to a lot of people in the entertainment industry. When we were in New Orleans, we spoke with a lot of more activists and creative entrepreneurs. So we kind of based it on location. And actually, one of the people that we interviewed in that first movie was Kurt Coco from NOLA Brewing Company. And this was right back when, Chip and I had just kind of turned 21. We were getting into craft beer, and he definitely inspired us to get a little more involved into that scene.
Is that how you picked the topic for this film?
Yeah, so Chip and I screamed the Dream Share Project at colleges, and one of our favorite things to do after we do a speaking event at a college is to go out and find the best local beer that we can. So as we've been traveling a bunch over these past 2 years, we really noticed that there has been such a huge surge in breweries. And so last summer in 2013, we had just wrapped up writing our first book, and we decided we wanted to do another film project, and that craft beer sounded like an awesome idea.
So wait, hang on a second. How far out of college are you?
I am. Chip and I are both 27 years old.
Okay, not too far out of college.
Yeah.
So
I think it's been about 5 years.
Okay, about 5 years, but you still have memories, and it sounds like you still have connections with college people. So the reason I'm asking about this is because when I was first starting I guess I had been a ways into developing the business plan for the brewery that I want to make. I would go to these startup weekend and business plan competitions and stuff, and people would usually ask why are you doing it here? This isn't a college town. Or they would say, college kids can't afford your beer. So what's your perspective on college audience, of course, over 21, but drinking specifically craft beer? I think the stereotype is that college kids just buy commercial cheap beer by the pitcher and get smashed.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think a lot of people have a different drinking experience or education, if you will. Like a lot of people don't have their very first sip of beer as a craft beer, but I think definitely, and talking with a bunch of different breweries as well, they said that a lot of people coming into their tap room are 20-somethings that have been right off the bat because there's so many options now in the marketplace, and craft beer is pretty much everywhere, that there's been so much more access to good beer that people are starting to drink it younger and younger. And those people are bringing in their parents or their grandparents or their coworkers and kind of turning them onto it. So I don't think that 21-year-old stereotype really holds true anymore. I think that with so many different options, and it's craft beer so available, that I paid for craft beer in college and a bunch of my friends did too.
Yeah, I think the trends are totally changing, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's kind of going along with this whole food revolution that we're also seeing. There's such a big shift in the consumer to getting something local, something handcrafted, something artisanal. And I think that it's just a natural extension as well to craft beer.
Yeah, that's a huge driver, I think, for craft beer, is the local goods movement and the craft goods movement.
For sure.
I was reviewing the trailer for Blood, Sweat, and Beer movie at bloodsweatbeermovie.com. Is that the URL?
That is it, yes.
Did you guys finish the sorry.
It's okay.
Did you finish the Kickstarter project recently? Because I think I heard about you guys on Twitter before you reached out to me.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, so Chip and I did a Kickstarter. I think we did 45 days, and it was from September 15th, and it ended on November 2nd. And we were successfully funded, which was so exciting. Thank you so much to everyone that donated their hard-earned cash for our movie. It was super, super exciting for us. So right now where we are is the movie is, I would say, 95% done. So we filmed for the past year and a half, and then really have spent the past about 6, 7, 8 months editing all of that footage down. And right now we are submitting to film festivals, and we would like to do film festivals and special screening events in 2015. So we're gearing up for all of that craziness.
Dang, I don't know if the MicroBrewr audience is anything like me. I love movies, so that part of it is really fascinating. How do you go about doing that kind of thing? Getting it into festivals and whatnot?
Festivals, it's a pretty straightforward process. It's just kind of either sending a DVD or uploading a link, and then your movie is in the hands of the festival gods, whether they want to put it into their programming or not. And then for special event screenings, I guess that's going to be a huge undertaking for us. Although we've visited a bunch of schools with our first movie, I imagine that this would be more around either beer festivals, food festivals, renting out theaters. So we're going to have to figure out how to do all of that, which is going to be crazy, but I'm sure really exciting.
Is that like being your own travel agent and booking agent and then just jumping in a van and traveling across the country with your movie?
I think that is what it's going to be like, yeah.
Sweet. So you guys don't have a regular job to be able to take time off for that, huh?
No, Chip and I, we've been self-employed, I guess, since 2012 was when we both officially left our other jobs. So we've been doing our speaking events and doing some other things with our first movie. We wrote a book called Build Your Dreams, How to Make a Living Doing What You Love. That was published last summer. And then we've been working on Blood, Sweat, and Beer for about a year and a half now. So, yeah, we are entrepreneurs.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Blood, Sweat, and Beer. You started leading into this, and I kind of got us off track.
Yeah.
How did you choose to do this movie?
Yeah, so Chip and I are definitely, we're giant craft beer fans. And then I guess we were just kind of itching for a new project, and it just seemed like the time was right to explore the industry. There's so much growth and excitement surrounding the industry through people that drink it and through people starting breweries that we just kind of assumed that there had to be some stories somewhere. So we really started off with this idea of let's kind of explore the industry overall and see what happens. So at the beginning of last summer, we just kind of started emailing a bunch of local breweries. We live in Maryland and spend the summers at the beach in Delaware. So we started doing a bunch of interviews to just kind of get a feel for what was going on. And one of the first interviews that we actually did was with Danny Robinson of Shorebilly Brewing Company. And we were very intrigued and enthused by his enthusiasm and passion for opening up a brewery. We talked to him about a week before his grand opening, and we asked him if we could follow him for a year, his first year of business, kind of see the trials and tribulations that come along with opening a small business and a small brewery. And about 3 months into that, he was slammed with this trademark lawsuit over the name of his brewery. So things got a little more interesting as that happened. And Danny's story was filled with so many ups and downs that as we continued to do these interviews, we really thought that we needed to find another startup story to follow. And that is how we decided to kind of feature the other brewery in the film, the Brew Gentleman Beer Company in Braddock, Pennsylvania.
Before we talk about the Brew Gentleman, tell me some more about the trademark issues, because already just through MicroBrewr podcast, I've heard several stories about similar situations.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot topic right now in the brewery world, unfortunately for many people, I think. So Danny's story is that his brewery was called Shorebilly Brewing Company, and that name was trademarked for use in restaurants and food services. So
even with the brewing company or just Shorebilly?
I'm not sure. I think it was the entire name.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So about 3 months into his business, there, I guess, is another local shop that sold merchandise, T-shirts, hats, visors, stuff like that, with the word Shorebilly on it. So Shorebilly is kind of like a local Eastern Shore term that is supposed to be like hillbilly, but you're on the shore. People that kind of ditch their lives and have moved down to the beach and are staying permanently. So it's kind of like a local Maryland Eastern Shore term. So it makes sense that someone else would have, put that on a T-shirt.
It's kind of a common term.
Yeah. So they sued Danny because as a brewery, he also had T-shirts with the word Shorebilly on it.
Oh, okay. You're saying he's the one who had it copyrighted for the food services. I thought you were saying somebody else. And then somebody else just put Shorebilly on a T-shirt after?
Correct. It appears that they were in business before.
Ooh.
So
it's so silly. Like, of course he's going to have T-shirts for his brewery, right?
That's exactly what he said. He said every brewery sells T-shirts, but not every T-shirt shop sells beer. So it's not really the same thing. But unfortunately for him, he is still battling this lawsuit. This started last summer at the end of July in 2013. So it is still ongoing.
So all of his T-shirts are just kind of on hold for now?
Well, unfortunately, what happened is Shorebilly Brewing Company no longer exists. Danny was forced to change his brewery's name last December. So he is now Backshore Brewing Company.
Is that as a result of this whole T-shirt thing?
That was as a result of the TShirt lawsuit.
Oh my
However, even with the name change, the lawsuit did not end. And that's what he's still fighting with, the damages incurred in the past. And this other company is saying that he could owe their legal fees that they racked up during this entire legal battle.
Well, he's one of the... I mean, you only really showed a couple characters in just the trailer so far. I'm really looking forward to the film, but he's somebody who I was like really resonating with. Some of the things that he said in the trailer were like just touched my heartstrings. How do you say it?
Yeah.
He says, when you're in business and when you're an entrepreneur, things are just glaring to you that aren't glaring to other people. And I feel like so many times I'm trying to like express my vision and what I see as the future, sort of like my alternate reality, and nobody's on board. I'm like, why doesn't anybody see this perfect future that I see?
Yeah, that's actually funny you say that. It's not included in the film, but Brandon, who is the head brewer at the Brew Gentleman Beer Company, actually was talking to us one time, and he was like, I think the difference between an entrepreneur and somebody that does not own their own business or doesn't want to start their own business is that entrepreneurs can kind of sense a better possibility in the future, and they decide to go for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell me about the other brewery. How did they get chosen to follow them through the film?
Sure. So Chip and I had lots of different ideas during the filming of this movie, and one of them was to follow some people taking the Cicerone exam. So there was a Cicerone exam in DC last December, which is where we live. And I kind of sent out a mass email to all the test candidates. If you're interested in talking about this, we'll be outside after the exam. So I met Matt and Asa from the Brew Gentleman Beer Company. They told us that they were 23 years old and they were starting a brewery out in Braddock, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Pittsburgh. So Chip and I were kind of instantly intrigued by them because they were definitely the youngest people that we had ever talked to that said that they were starting a brewery. And I kind of saved their contact information. And then a couple months later, when we were in Pittsburgh for another work thing, I sent them an email, asked if they were still under construction. Matt and Asa said yes. Did we want to stop by? And that's kind of how that started. So when we drove into Braddock, Pennsylvania, Chip and I had no idea about the history of the town, but needless to say, we were completely shocked. There are abandoned buildings everywhere. There's boards over windows. Things are knocked down. There's trees growing through roofs. Most of the businesses on the main street are shut down. So we just go into the Brew Gentleman, and they're telling us that they're opening a brewery up in this town. So come to find out that Braddock has a long, long history. So back in the day, it was actually where Andrew Carnegie opened his very first steel plant. And it's also, it was kind of like the hot spot to live. The really great suburb outside of Pittsburgh back in the 50s and 60s. It was kind of the Leave It to Beaver spot to be. But after the steel mill, a lot of the jobs went automated. There was a huge shift of the population, people leaving to go find work. So the town shrank from about 20,000 people to 2,000 people. Then with that, there came drugs, there was a lot of gang violence, and Braddock became essentially an abandoned, really dangerous spot to live. But in the past about 10 years or so, there's been a big effort by the community to start revitalizing the area and kind of make it a neighborhood and a community again. So the Brew gentlemen, both Matt and Asa, went to school at Carnegie Mellon, which is in Pittsburgh. They saw John Fetterman, the mayor, speak at Carnegie Mellon, and they were really excited and enthused by his idea of ways to revitalize Braddock. And they had been working on a business plan for a brewery in one of their classes, and they decided that Braddock was going to be their spot, and they were just going to go for it.
They grew up in Braddock?
I think, well, Matt's actually from Hawaii and then came to Pittsburgh for college, and Asa is from right outside of Boston. So they were both kind of transplants to the area.
Huh.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from these breweries featured in the film? What can you share with our audience of MicroBrewr? They're all about starting a brewery. Did you learn any lessons that you can extend to our audience?
I think I learned a lot. Yeah, definitely this might be a boring lesson, but truly from Danny, I would say any legal paperwork items that need to get handled, handle them, triple check them, quadruple check them. I cannot imagine. I'm sure there's so much paperwork involved with getting not only a small business, but a brewery off the ground. But I think getting those I's dotted and T's crossed before opening could save you a lot of headache in the future. Also, I think something that was pretty interesting to me about the Brew gentlemen was, I think that will help them in the future and just in getting open was, so the Brew gentlemen consists of Matt, Asa, and Brandon. So Brandon is their head brewer, and Matt and Asa really have focused more on the business aspect of that. Even though they were both home brewers in college, they decided they wanted to go more business, sales, marketing route, and then they hired Brandon off ProBrewr to be their lead brewer. So to me, I think that's actually a really smart idea because I think it's tempting when you are passionate about an idea and you have a small business that you want to get off the ground. Sometimes by necessity, you kind of have to take on every single role just to get going. But I think over time that really cannot work or be sustained. So I think that if you have a team or even a partner, that way you each can focus on what you are really good at, what you're going to excel at, and then someone else can focus on what they're really good at and can excel at. I think that's really important.
So let's talk about this legal aspect a little bit. You said that the trademark issues are a really big thing in the brewing world right now. Why is that happening?
Well, I think that there's potentially a couple reasons. I guess craft beer is so hot right now that it's gaining a lot of public attention and interest from the media. So I think that that's one. And I guess also because this is such a new industry, it's still kind of being forged how everything is going to shake out and how everything is going to work out. So I feel like all of this trademark stuff is kind of like the growing pains of the industry right now.
Is that the main thing to worry about as far as checking your legal issues ahead of time before you open?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I guess also there's just such an abundance of beer and breweries right now that it wouldn't be too hard to name your beer something that someone else had done or, something similar. So I'm sure that it's tough to figure all of that stuff out, but probably some research in the beginning could save a lot of headache later.
Yeah, there's been a lot of guests on MicroBrewr who talked about issues like that, and a lot of guests who mentioned being sure to vet your name and check that through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So I'll put another link to that in the show notes. And what about starting a team? Nobody can do this on their own, huh?
I mean, I don't want to say never because everyone is a different case, but it seems like it would be really hard to do it all completely by yourself. I think also that even if you are good at a bunch of things, sometimes dividing your time and attention up amongst so many different aspects of starting a brewery is not going to work out the best for you in the end. I'm a pretty big believer that you should really focus your energy and time on what you're good at and keep making that better and better and better. And then other people around you will excel at other stuff and they can pick up the slack. It's pretty rare that someone could, be an amazing brewer, open up a business, deal with legal stuff, market, sell, work social media, get all of this going and excel at all of it. And I think that to be a successful brewery, you really need to kind of have some people focused on different aspects.
Yeah, so find somebody who has strengths in where I am weak.
Yeah.
And then we'll complement each other that way.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think also that, brewing is completely different than selling beer. And selling beer is totally different than running a website. Like there are so many different aspects involved now, I think, in running a brewery that I think the process could be a little bit easier if you had a partner or some other people to help you get it off the ground.
So how many other people or other breweries did you interview for Blood, Sweat, and Beer?
Chip and I, so we filmed for 15 months in 14 different states, and we did over 100 interviews. So we did some of the, big regional and national brands like Sierra Nevada, New Belgium, Brooklyn, Oscar Blues, Cigar City. And then we also talked to lots of smaller breweries. So people like, we spoke with Wicked Weed, RJ Rockers, a bunch of local breweries around us that had just started out. So we really kind of ran the gamut of size and scope in breweries.
So I'm in the business of, so to speak, of interviewing breweries. How do you find them?
Well, to be honest, it wasn't that hard. Chip and I, we have been enjoying craft beer for a while, so there was lots of people we wanted to talk to. And then kind of as we were moving forward with this project, we realized that some of the bigger, more established breweries would be great for providing more context to the film overall and kind of commenting on the industry. And then we wanted to talk to the smaller ones to kind of get that more inside personal depth of what is it like to be opening a brewery and getting a business going during this time.
Oh, right. Okay. So some of those bigger names, we'll get to see them in the film also?
Yeah, we have, so the film primarily focuses on Danny's story and on the Brew Gentleman's story. And then throughout it, though, we've kind of sprinkled different sections about different pieces of the industry. So
what else did you learn from the interviewees?
Yeah, well, I think especially in regards to people starting a brewery, one of my favorite people that we talked to was Hugh Sisson from Heavy Seas Brewery, which is in Baltimore, Maryland. And Hugh has been in the business for a very long time. He started out with brew pubs and then transitioned over to breweries. And now Heavy Seas is one of the really strong regional breweries in our area. And it was funny because this was in the beginning of our interviews, and we asked, do you think that there's a craft beer bubble? Is this going to shake out and this growth is going to stop? And he said, one thing that will always stick with me was a bunch of people are going to jump into this with a recipe and a dream and have no clue what they're doing. The economic realities of this business are very harsh. And he was saying that it's not so much that people are going to close their doors because they failed. It's more that they are going to be working for 10 years, 70 hours a week, and maybe earning $35,000 to $40,000 a year, which was a pretty harsh, but I think realistic look at the time and effort that it can take to get a small business not only off the ground, but to become profitable. And maybe, I don't know what that profit will be. So that was definitely something that stuck out to us.
Got to be ready to work hard for a long time.
Yeah.
So what are some of the top lessons from this whole project that you can extend to others who want to open a brewery who recently opened a brewery?
Something that I think ended up being really important that kind of became clear to us as we continued filming was how prominently your location plays into your brewery and your market. So I think that before starting a brewery, it's really important to think about what could your brewery bring to an area, and then what is your area going to bring to your brewery. So, for example, Danny opened his brewery on the boardwalk of Ocean City, Maryland. And when he opened, there was no breweries in Ocean City, and there was none on the boardwalk. There's a lot of great breweries kind of surrounding Ocean City and that area, but there was none in Ocean City proper, probably because Ocean City kind of has the reputation of mini golf, rum punch drinks, water slides, that kind of thing, kind of like the corny boardwalk, which isn't necessarily where you might expect to find a craft beer consumer. But Danny assumed, and I think he assumed right, that craft beer drinkers are everywhere and they would love a spot on the boardwalk to drink beer. So I think he kind of saw that need in his local market and went for it. And I think that was a good idea. And then the Brew Gentleman, it's kind of a more extreme example. Braddock, as of right now, does not even have a restaurant in it. By choosing to do Braddock, they also will be the first brewery in Braddock, which hopefully will be revitalized in coming years and more businesses will go there. But by picking such a place with such a big history and such a dramatic downfall, the local community has really supported them and got behind them and become really excited about their brewery opening. So I think that that's important to think about when thinking about your own business is how are you going to be serving the local market? What is that serving going to be? And can your area that you pick, what will that do for you?
Yeah, so often I'm thinking of like, what does this area offer the brewery that I want to put there? What would be the benefits to me? And I should be thinking more about what benefits will I bring to this specific location.
Yeah, I think it definitely goes both ways.
Alexis, what's your favorite memory from doing this project?
Oh my gosh, I have so many fun memories. Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't know what my favorite memory is. We have a couple crazy stories. One night, we were headed from Iowa to Colorado, which is about a 13-hour drive. So Chip and I did a speaking engagement at a college that ended at 9 o'clock at night, hopped in the car, drove until 6 o'clock in the morning, nonstop, through snow, up mountains to get to Boulder, Colorado, where we then interviewed Charlie Papazian, Julia Hers, stopped at Oscar Blues to film some footage, and then headed to New Belgium to do an interview. So there was a lot of days like that where it was just completely go, 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 go during filming. But it was honestly so fun making this movie. We got to travel all over the country, talk to so many interesting and creative people that I kind of feel like all of the stuff we did was my favorite. This was such a good experience.
Well, now we have a question from one of our listeners, Ray Pierce. He's actually my father. He asks, is it profitable? I thought I was too personal to ask any brewery directly, so I'm going to ask you what you've generally seen.
Well, based on some comments that we got during the interviews, was a lot of breweries kind of said to us that they doubt that there are going to be any more of those really big national, regional players at this point in the game, or that if there are, it's going to be pretty hard to kind of crack into that market. A lot of people said that a nano or, a really small local brewery that they probably have will be able to survive and be successful, but the profit margins are so slim that it can be a little tricky, I think, when you're operating on such a small scale in the beginning.
Yeah, so that's a word of caution to people wanting to get into this, huh? Really, really check the numbers.
Yeah, definitely. Hugh Sisson also told us that kind of after you break down, your overhead costs of your property, your ingredients, paying people, taxes, all that stuff, that a brewery is making $1 to $1.50 typically on a 6-pack, which he then followed up with, how many 6-packs do you need to sell to cover your overhead? Wow. So, yeah, I think that's some pretty tough economic reality, but I also think it's possible. I mean, the craft brewing industry, we're seeing so much growth because people want to drink it. Consumers want this product. So it's definitely in your favor.
Okay, Alexis, it's time for happy hour. The next set of questions are a little bit lighter. We're going to get to know each other a little better, have some fun, and get inside the industry. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cans or bottles?
I'll take a bottle.
Why do you prefer bottles?
To be honest, it's just kind of, I guess, what I've always bought. Most of the beers that I buy are typically in bottles, I guess. We don't see too many cans. Although I did just have a can of DC Brau Public Pale Ale about 2 nights ago, and that was delicious. So really, I will take either one.
What's the most challenging part of making Blood, Sweat, and Beer?
Definitely, I think the most challenging part was, and this is definitely with getting any creative project or entrepreneurial project off the ground, is to just keep going. There were so many days of staring at a screen and editing clips, for hours on end. And then 2 weeks later, we would dump an entire section that we had spent a month working on. But that was definitely the hardest part. You've got to keep persevering to get to the end.
If you could make a film about any person alive today, who would it be?
Oh, well, my first response was Taylor Swift. I don't know how that's going to go over with your audience. I feel like she would have some interesting stories to tell. Nice.
I read parts of some interviews that some friends put up on Facebook. Sounds really intelligent.
Yeah, I think she definitely is a very driven, ambitious woman. So I think she would have some interesting stories to tell if she would let someone film her.
Taylor Swift, if you're listening to MicroBrewr podcast, you heard it here. Tell me one beer style that you think will be gaining more attention.
I definitely think that sours. I mean, they're already pretty popular right now. I guess it's still a small subset, but I think sours are actually pretty interesting. They're kind of, to me, more like a crossover beer for people that don't usually drink craft beer. A lot of my girlfriends, when we go out, they are more of a vodka soda or wine drinker. And the past few times that I've gone out and there's been a sour, I've offered it to 2 of my best friends and they both loved it. They said it tasted kind of more juicy, more like cider. So sour beers kind of have that reputation, or that craft beer, I guess, stigma attached to them. Not a stigma, but like it's a craft beer geek kind of thing. But I actually think that they have a lot of potential to draw a non-craft beer drinker in.
I think sour beers seem to have a lot of complexity that the wine arena attracts me to.
Yeah, definitely.
Did I say that properly?
Yeah.
Something that I really like about wine is that it's really complex, and sour beers I think are a lot more complex than other beer styles.
Yeah, and I think it's also just kind of like a different flavor than maybe someone that just has had a sip of an IPA or something and said they didn't like it. So I think it surprises people as well. And then that kind of is like I liked this. Maybe I would try something else next time.
Can you suggest a book for our audience that will help them succeed in running a business?
Oh my gosh, I'm going to do a shameless plug right now. So as I said before, Chip and I published our first book. It came out last summer. It's called Build Your Dreams, How to Make a Living Doing What You Love. And that is everything you need to turn your passion into your profession. So it's filled with tons of exercises and anecdotes. And it's, I would say, a very hands-on approach to thinking about your dream and getting it off the ground.
Awesome. That sounds up my alley too. And listeners, I'll have a link to that on the show notes as well as in the book list, microbrewer.com/book list, where you could see every book that's been mentioned in this podcast. Alexis, tell me something that you're really excited about right now, and then we'll close up the brew house for the night.
Oh my gosh, I have to tell you the truth. My friends are having a holiday party on December 20th, and I'm in charge of bringing the holiday punch, so I'm pretty excited about that. Usually I'm bringing a 6-pack to a party, so I'm going to kind of extend my my bartender capabilities here and whip up a tasty holiday punch for my friends. I'm pretty excited about coming up with a recipe.
What do you have in mind?
Last year at a holiday party, I made a really, really good it was grapefruit juice, gin, and rosemary-infused simple syrup with seltzer, and it was so delicious. So I think I kind of want to go another citrusy route like that. It was really good.
Rosemary-infused simple syrup.
Yeah.
Sounds culinary.
Yeah. It was pretty good.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Alexis. Thanks for sharing what you learned from talking to so many different breweries. Tell us how we can stay in touch with you, and then we'll set this episode aside to ferment.
Awesome. So you can watch our trailer or pre-order your copy of the movie for only $5 at www.bloodsweatbeermovie.com. And we're actually going to give MicroBrewr listeners a 20% discount code. So that will be MicroBrewr in all caps when you go to pre-order. That button's right on the front of our website. We are on Twitter at BloodSweatBrew. We are on Instagram at BloodSweatBeerMovie. And we are also on Facebook at Blood, Sweat, and Beer, the movie.
Thanks again, Alexis Irvin, for being on MicroBrewr Podcast. Thanks for sharing your stories and your advice from what you learned while making Blood, Sweat, and Beer documentary. Listeners, remember that coupon code to get 20% off of the digital download. So go to the show notes for the code and the link to Blood, Sweat, and Beer website, where you can redeem the code and pre-order the full-length movie for just $3.99. The show notes for this episode are at microbrewer.com/session40. That's microbrewer.com/session40. And please, while you're there, use the links and get in touch with Alexis Irvin and Chip Hayden and thank them for hooking us up with their documentary, Blood, Sweat, and Beer. Please also go to microbrewer.com/support microbrewer and see how you can support MicroBrewr. Thank you so much. That's microbrewer.com/support microbrewer. For example, one way to support the show is to leave a review in iTunes. And we have a contest to win some MicroBrewr podcast bar coasters. There's full instructions at the end of episode 39. Refer back there, then leave your review in iTunes. I'll pick 5 winners on December 31st, 2014. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, support your local brewery, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to MicroBrewr Podcast with Nathan Pierce. We'll see you right here next time at microbrewer.com.
If you want more resources for starting a craft brewery, check out microbrewer.com, microbrewer.com. If you want to become a Cicerone certified beer server, check out beerexamschool.com for free study guide and flashcards for the certified beer server exam. beerexamschool.com.